أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت الحكيم العليم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. وصلى الله على سيد الأنام وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. So let's go now to where we left off, inshallah. And we covered Hamza's death, right? I mean his conversion, radiyallahu anhu. Then the next where we go to is Quraysh make offers and demands. Obviously, you could imagine that Hamza, radiyallahu anhu, he's Za'im, even though he's still young. He's in his at this point he's probably in his mid-40s. So he's moving into Rujula. For the Arabs, you were a shab until you reached 40, a youngster. It's very interesting. I mean, they really viewed age as that something came with age. And I remember being told when I was in my early 20s by somebody who was about 40. He said to me, there's just things you can't understand when you're in your 20s that you won't understand until you get, into your 30s. And sure enough, if you get there by Allah, you'll realize the truth of that, right? There's just certain understandings that come with age that no matter how much you try to put it into a young person's head, they can't. They don't have that understanding. Which is one of the reasons why a person who is given understanding or wisdom in the Deen was traditionally called Shaykh, which means old man, even if they were young. And the reason for that is the idea that they had a wisdom that old people usually get. And in this country, it used to be, not anymore, because they're all out with their pink shorts playing golf at Sun Valley if they're rich, and if they're not, they're oftentimes much worse off, doing other things. But traditionally in this country, there was an idea of the old grandmother that, who really had wisdom. You could go to her and ask her, and she'd kind of seen it all, and she imparted that wisdom to you. Grandma, I have this or I have that, and can you, give me some guidance? And they did. They had a wisdom, and that wisdom was related simply to age. Right? So there's a reality to age. But the Arabs saw that from the first up to about 7, this area here, in their understanding, which is subuwa or tufula, is there's no aqal, and you can't expect any aqal. From 7 to about 15, they're moving into the youth. It's a ghulam, right? Young, and ghulam comes from a word that has to do with desire. And they begin to, you can see this kind of desire to understand, to learn, to assimilate. And then from about 15 to 40, this is your shabab. Which is the youth, the vigor that you have. And traditionally, this period was seen as a period where, this 7 to 15, they would be learning martial arts. They would be learning how to speak properly, eloquently, spending time listening to the shu'ara and these type things. And then when they reach 15, They begin to get introduced into, they start trading, going on journeys. They could fight at that point if there was wars, things like that. And then that would go on to about 40, and about 40, they start getting asked their opinion. And this is a rajul. This period here is a rajul. He's a man. And that would go up to, 60, 55, 60. And at that point, he would begin to become a shaykh, an elder. Right? Futuwa would be, feta is in this early part of shabab. Feta, the early part of shabab. Because you're also going to get kahal. Kahal in the Arabic understanding came at about 30 years of age to 40. You call that kahal. They're no longer the early shabab. Now they're moving into a more mature type of shabab. They're not as stupid as they were earlier. They don't do foolish things as much, that type of thing. All right, so Hamza is going to be somewhere around here. He's not yet a shaykh in the system, but he's somebody, he's not a shab. He's a rajul. And you don't mess with the rijal, right? And Hamza he was very formidable. He was extremely powerful. He was an archer. He was a swordsman. He spent a lot of time hunting. And he was more of a solitary type person. He liked to go out and hunt in the desert. That's really what he liked to do. And when he came and confronted Abu Jahl like that, Abu Jahl was an elder. So you have to recognize, this is getting serious. The Quraysh, he's still a young upstart. To Abu Jahl, Hamza is still a young man. He's not a shaykh. He's not amongst the nidwa. He's not amongst the elders. And he came and, threatened him and then actually physically attacked him. So this is a big affront. And Abu Jahl, who was a wretched human being during this whole period, mustahzi, making fun of the Prophet, despite that, he was called Abu Hakam before Islam, which is somebody who, he had some kind of understanding, and he obviously recognized, this is really getting serious. The Quraysh, they're talking now. What are we going to do about this? Let's offer him. Let's go and offer him. I mean, they had the idea. They actually went to him at Walid and Utbah. One of the ideas was, let's tell him we'll worship his God one day, and he worships our gods the next day. Right? That was one of the plans. And obviously, the Prophet ﷺ rejected it. They came and they said, look, you want money? We'll give you all the money you want. You want women? We'll marry you the most beautiful virgins in the Quraysh. You want a king? We'll make you a king over us. How's that? And each time the Prophet ﷺ, he would recite to them Quran, and he would reject their offers. Now you can see, here's people that all these things are what are important to them. And this is a really important thing to remember. Here's a group of men whose main concerns in the world are status, wealth, lots of wives and children, right? These are all the things that they see as important. And what they view as the thing that's going to go on is not, they don't believe in that. They don't believe in akhirah. What do they believe in? That their immortality is being praised by poets, is being remembered by their offspring, so that they're remembered by Qusay is remembered, because that's one of the things they tell the Prophet, bring back Qusay. If you're true, bring back Qusay, because he was a good man, Rajulu Sidqin, and we'll listen to what he says. If he says you're true, we'll follow you. Right? So Qusay, Murrah, Lu'ay, these are the people, they look up to them. Even Abdul Muttalib. These were their ancestors. And they used to do dhikr of their aba. Allah tells us in the Quran to remember Allah like they remember their fathers. So they literally used to get together and they would remember their father. And they still do it. They have dances in Arabia, the Najdi Arabs in particular. They do dances where they'll chant the names of their fathers and move in and out and do these things, and they'll chant the names of their fathers. So this is really what they believed in. He's saying that their fathers, the Quran says, وَلَوْ كَانُوا أَبَاءُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا. even if their fathers didn't have any aql. I mean, he's saying that they were sufaha, right? This is what they're seeing. And then their alihat that they inherited from their fathers, كَذَلِكَ وَجَدْنَا أَبَاءَنَا. We found our fathers doing this, that's why we're doing it. And who are you? They were great men. This is taqleed. This is a classic example of taqleed, which is why it's madmoom. Taqleed in Islam is generally madmoom. It's a low position. Why? Because, I'm doing it. Why? Because, this is what the forefathers said, right? This is what they said. So taqleed is understood to be, it's a weak position. There's no authority that goes with it, other than the authority of the ancestors, right? Of those that went before you. And if they had valid authority, like from Allah and His Messenger, or Allah and His Messengers through the ijma' of the community, then obviously there's an authority, like Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu. He's an authority in our deen, because the ijma' is that he was rightly guided. So it's, don't misunderstand that about it. But the point is that here they were really being confronted with a big problem. So they go to the Prophet ﷺ and they tell him. Now, the one man that they sent there, Utbah, he was not a mustahsi, which is probably one of the reasons why they chose him. He was not somebody making fun of the Prophet. He was also known, he was a clever person. He wasn't a fool. And he went there and he told the Prophet ﷺ, why don't you come and let's join, and we can do this, we'll make you a king, we'll do all these things. And the Prophet ﷺ recites to him the Qur'an. He said, are you done? He said, yes. He recites to him the Qur'an. Now, Utbah, he's Arabi, first of all. And he knows the power of words, because that's what the Quraysh knew. They knew the power of words, they knew the power of balagha, and he thinks, he hears the Qur'an, and he's knocked out. He's stunned by it. He goes back to the Quraysh, Abu Hal and these characters, what happened? And he tells them, I think we should rethink this. And they say, what's up? And he's saying, look, he has something amazing, and let's just leave him. And if the rest of the Arabs want to take care of him, that's it, they'll take care of him for us. But if he ends up, right, becoming this person that it looks like it'll happen if we leave him alone, mulkuhu mulkukum, wa'izzuhu izzukum. He's a Qurayshi, you're Qurayshi. You see, we'll be in on it anyway. This is what he tells him. And Abu Jahl immediately says, Saharakum Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's bewitched you. He did it to you. Right? So Utbah says, that's what I have. In other words, that's my opinion. He leaves them. So if you look at that situation, it's a very interesting situation for them. So they're making these demands, and there's no reply. Now, another thing in here that's interesting that he mentions is the rumor that was obviously spread around, Ar-Rahman 'allama al-Qur'an. Right? The Rahman 'allama al-Qur'an. The Arabs did not use the name Ar-Rahman for Allah. That was not a name that they knew. They didn't know that name. It's a fa'lan, right? Is a sifa mubalagha. It expresses a type of exaggerated form, hyperbolic, extremely merciful. They didn't use that. They had Rahim, but they didn't have Ar-Rahman. And so they asked him, Ar-Rahman, what's Ar-Rahman? What is this? Well, some of them said, like as some type joke, there's a man from Yamama named Rahman, and he's teaching the Prophet ﷺ these things. So they come to him, and they're making fun of him, and they say, we heard you were taught by Rahman. We're not going to believe Rahman or you or anybody else, right? And then Abu Umayyah, who was another one, Abdullah Abu Umayyah raised, he says, even if you came with all these things, and the angels and all these things, he said, I would not believe in you. Even if you took a ladder, went up to the heavens, bring 4 angels to testify that you're who you claim to be, and then I would not believe you, even then. So this is inad, right? Inad really is the word that expresses. This is obstinacy. They're mu'anidun. This is no longer about haqq and batil. This is about knowing it and just no matter what, even if you proved it to me, I'm not going to believe it because I've resolved not to believe anything that you say. Now, the Makhzumis, there's an important thing to remember here. The things Abu Jahl mentioned. He was a Makhzumi. The Makhzumis, he says at one point, he said, look, Abdul Manaf, and the Prophet's from Bani Hashim, they're from Abdul Manaf. He said, Abdul Manaf and us, we've been competing. Horse head to horse head. They feed, we feed. Right? They're generous, we're generous. They give water to the Hujjaj, we give water to the Hujjaj. And now they're telling us they have a prophet from among them. In other words, we can't top this one. See? So they're seeing it as within the Jahili troll structure. Abdul Manaf, Yatim Bani Hashim, the orphan of Bani Hashim. This is all takabbur. We can't allow this to happen. And so you can see this is why it's called Jahiliyyah. This is the time of Jahiliyyah. These are Jahili characters, and they're manifesting their Jahiliyyah for everybody to see it. And for the Sahaba, it's clear as day. It is clear as day. And that's what's really important to see about these people. Now, one of the interesting things is one of the Makhzumi, who's Arqam, becomes Muslim. And he's got some, he's a substantial person. And each time somebody comes in from the tribe, they bring in those who are protecting them. Because this was one of the things that the Quraysh, one of the important things about somebody who wanted a position amongst the Quraysh, he had to have the ability to protect others. And that ability was related, 1, to his tribal ties, 2, to his own wealth, and 3, to a type of martial prowess that he could display when needed. So they were warriors. So when these people were Muslim, they weren't just becoming Muslim on their own, they were bringing in whatever influence and authority they had behind them. And this is really important. And this is also one of the reasons why marriage was a completely political move in their culture. When you got married, you were marrying a tribe, a clan. And so there's a lot of politics going on here during that time. One of the, in Surah Al-Isra, there's a verse in there which says exactly what they said, which is that قالوا لن نؤمن لك حتى تفجر لنا من الأرض ينبوعا. We won't believe in you until you literally make a spring come out of the earth. أو تكون لك جنة من نخيل وعنب. Or make a jannah from dates, because they didn't have dates in Mecca, it was in Medina. Make grapes and dates like they have in Medina and Ta'if. Make Mecca like that. And in another one they say, make us like Iraq, where there's all these rivers and all these things. So they're really, making fun. And فَتُفَجِّرُ الْأَنْهَارَ خِفْجِرًا. And they say, أَوْ تُسْقِطَ السَّمَاءَ كَمَا زَعَمْتَ عَلَيْنَا. Or make the heaven fall on our heads like you claim. Because the Quran says that Allah can make the heaven fall. So they're making fun. And they're really making fun of this. Make the heavens come down. Quran says that the heavens are going to come down. Let's see it happen. And this is the height of arrogance and disbelief. And then they say, أَوْ تَأْتِيَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ قَبِيلًا. Or bring Allah and His angels. Let's see them. Right? أَوْ يَكُونَ لَكَ بَيْتٌ مِّن زُخْرُفٍ. Or let's see a house made out of all this gold and silver and ornament. أَوْ تَرْقَى فِي السَّمَاءِ. Or let's see you fly up into the sky. وَلَن نُؤْمِنَ لِرُقِيِّكَ حَتَّى تُنَزِّلَ عَلَيْنَا كِتَابًا نَقْرَأُهُ. We won't even believe you, even if you went up to the sky, until you bring a book down that we can read it ourselves from the heavens. And then the Prophet's commands say, قُلْ سُبْحَانَ رَبِّ هَلْ كُنْتُ إِلَّا بَشَرًا رَسُولًا. Glory be to my Lord. Am I nothing other than a human being who happens to be a messenger? In other words, you're asking me to do these insane things. I'm a human being, but I'm a messenger, which does not mean in any way that he did not have miracles. He did, right? Because the point that he's making here, and in another one he says, مَا أَنَا بِفَاعِلٍ ذَلِكَ. I'm not going to do that. وَمَا كُنْتُ الَّذِي يَسَلُ رَبَّهُ هَذَا. And I'm not from those who ask their Lord things like this. In other words, I didn't come for dunya. I didn't come I'm teaching you something that's better than all this stuff that you worship. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to them and all their challenges to see miracles and all these things. Allah says, لو فتحنا عليهم بابا من السماء فظلوا يعرجون فيه يعرجون لقالوا إنما سكرت أبصارنا had we opened up to them a passageway into the heavens so that they could actually ascend up into the heavens, they would have said, our eyes are bewitched. بَلْ نَحْنُ قَوْمٌ مَسْحُرُونَ. We've been put under a spell. And so the point is, this is always a way out. No matter how much proof you bring them, they're always going to find something to say. And this is what they said. He goes, chapter 23 about wonderment and hope, is really, I think there was a really good point made in there, and that is, this idea that it's such a different vision of the world, right? That Islam came in the midst of these people and brought such a radically different understanding of what's important in the world. And another thing to remember also is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, because he's offered all of these extraordinary things, he's offered to be king, he's offered wealth, he's offered women, he's offered position, power, all these things. What we're being told here is, and this is really an important point, is the naysayers and detractors of the Prophet ﷺ, if they say he only wanted power, why, when he was at his most persecuted in Mecca and he's offered power, he refuses it? They're threatening him death. Right? They're threatening to kill him. They're offering him to make him king. They've never had a king, the Arabs. The Quraysh are saying, look, we'll make you Malik. If you want to be king, we'll make you Malik. It's not what I want. We'll give you wealth. It's not what I want. We'll give you women. It's not what I want. So all these mughriyat, right, these seductive things that he's being offered, that many, many men have easily fallen by the wayside. Many, many, even great men, right? The downfall of many a great man is power, wealth, women, right? All these things. And vice versa for the women as well. So the point is that he's offered all these things and he doesn't take them, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is really one of the great proofs of his message and the truth of it. Now, another thing here in chapter 24 is important, because what's happening is things are really heating up, and there's a lot of open hostility between these Arabs. One of the Abu Lahab, his wife is Jamil, who's the sister of Abu Sufyan, who's going to emerge later. He wasn't from the Mustahzi'in, and he inherits when Harb dies. He becomes this leader and he's very related very closely to the Prophet. His father is one of the brothers of Abdul Muttalib. So there's a very strong relationship here. Now, they convinced their children to repudiate Ruqayya and Kulthum. Right? So here's splitting families. This is a marriage, obviously, and it's splitting that. One of the, for Jamil, obviously, Uthman ibn Affan proposes to Ruqayya, and the marriage proposal is accepted. Uthman is Umawi. He's from a very powerful clan, and he becomes married. So that's obviously put the wet towel on her plans. Yeah. He mentions in there as if they weren't. My understanding is that the marriages had taken place. So there might be there probably is a difference of opinion about that. Yeah, what was that? 68. Yeah, this is one of the things that you have to be careful in this book about. And I think the book is really good to reject it because of these things. And, the author, Martin Lane, and he is a Muslim. And so I think it's probably better to have a good opinion of his intentions. Important to note that this book was probably written more for non-Muslims than it was for Muslims, and obviously the majority of English-speaking non-Muslims are going to be Christian. So he puts in these little things that are obviously going to make Christians feel a little bit more comfortable. Here is this paragraph at the bottom of page 68 is other signs demanded by Quraysh were in fact given, but not exactly as they asked, and not in their time, but in God. There were also lesser miracles which only the believers witnessed, but such miracles were never allowed to stand in the center, for the revealed book itself was the central miracle of the divine intervention now taking place, just as Christ had been the central miracle of the preceding intervention, which is probably true. According to the Quran, Jesus is both messenger of Allah, his word which he cast unto Maryam, and the spirit from him. And as it had been with the word made flesh, so now, analogously, it was through the divine presence in this world of the word made book that Islam was a religion in the true sense of the bond or link with the Akhirah. One of the functions of the word made book with a view of the primordial religion that Islam claimed to be was to reawaken in men his primeval sense of wonderment, which, with the passage of time, had become dimmed or misdirected. So that's not I don't know how he's making ta'wil. The outward of that is kufr, right? To believe that Isa alayhi salam is the word made flesh, if you mean by the word the kalimah, kalamullah. Because kalamullah is an attribute of Allah. And if you're saying an attribute became flesh, then that's kufr. Attributes are not incarnated, nor are they imbibliated. They don't become books. So that's a really important, and that Montgomery Watt is the first person I know that brought that idea into Christian missionaries as a way of trying to reconcile or to draw near the Muslims in their understanding to the idea of Christ as the God incarnate. So that just people really have to cancel that out. That is just simply not a Muslim doctrine at all. I don't know how he's going to make ta'wil or what he's going to say. You have to give people the benefit of the doubt before you condemn something outright. But the outward of that is completely unacceptable. And I don't really see any ta'wil for it personally. So I really reject that concept completely. And, it just paints the book a little bit. But this book is really, I think it's too good to throw away because of his attempts, I think, at trying to draw near to the Christian understanding. He has another little incident later on down the road. And the other thing that he put in there, which again is just simply not true, about the icon of Mary being in the Kaaba. And then he says this funny thing. That rebuilding of the Kaaba. He says, Jesus, when we say Isa alayhi salam is the kalimah of Allah, it just means he said kun fayakun. That he was a result of Allah saying be, and he was. He's not the logos. In other words, in the Christian, according to St. John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word was made flesh. Right? I mean, that's their belief. That's the Neoplatonic doctrine of the Logos. And the Logos is this eternal. So they call the Son the Logos.